Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 1.4B. I've entitled this video, Farming Changing How We Live. This video is going to cover pages 29 to 31. How did farming change human culture? The first effect on farming was on people's food supply. But over time, the Neolithic agricultural revolution transformed every part of human culture. What new kinds of shelter did people build? Farmers found ways to build permanent shelters. People used a mixture of mud and straw to form walls. The sun baked and hardened the mixture. People made roofs by placing poles and branches across the top of walls and covering them with mud. One of the oldest known farming settlements in the world is a village called Çatalhöyük. It stood in present-day Turkey more than 8,000 years ago. At its height, up to 6,000 people may have lived in Çatalhöyük. The environment provided sources of water and building materials. A British archaeologist described the two-story homes that made up the settlement. Primary source, Ian Hodder, This Old House. The houses of Çatalhöyük were so tightly packed together that there were few or no streets. Access to interior spaces was across roofs, which had been made of wood and reeds plastered with mud, and downstairs. People buried their dead beneath the floors. Above all, the interiors were rich with artwork, mural paintings, reliefs, and sculptures, including images of women that some interpreted as evidence for a cult of a mother goddess. Each home had its own kitchen and food storage area. The people grew grains and raised flocks of sheep and goats. How did farming change clothing? Agriculture also changed the way that people dressed. For hunter-gatherers, the most important materials for clothing were animal hides and furs. Farming provided new materials that were lighter and easier to work with. From Egypt and India to the Americas, farmers domesticated the cotton plant. They learned to weave cloth from the plant fibers. Another plant, flax, became a source of linen. Domesticated animals such as sheep and yaks also provided clothing materials. People used wool and other animal hair to form yarn or thread. In China, people later learned to breed silkworms. What were the effects of food surpluses? As crops and herds improved, the amount of food that farmers could produce each year increased. Some families were able to raise a surplus, or more than they needed to feed themselves. Surplus food could support a growing population. The size of farming villages thus increased. When there was a surplus of food, not everyone in a village needed to farm. Some people could specialize. Specialization occurs when people spend most of their time working at a single job or craft. They could then trade the goods they made for the surplus food grown by farmers. Skilled toolmakers turned stone into polished axes and knives. Potters shaped clay into bowls. Weavers wove sheep's wool into cloth. A few people also became skilled at metalworking. Early metal workers heated ore to extract or remove such metals as copper and tin. How did farming change social organization? Early farming communities remained small. Like hunting, farming required close cooperation among members of the community. Heads of families consulted to make important decisions. They might discuss when to plant and harvest crops, what to do with food surpluses, or how to protect the community from outside dangers. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of several Neolithic villages, such as Scarborough in Scotland, pictured here to the right. In these villages, all homes were more or less the same size. Some historians believe this means that great differences in social standing did not yet exist. Still, having a permanent place to live meant that people could own more possessions. Early farmers filled their homes with furniture, tools, clay pots, and other goods. These items would have been too heavy to move from one campsite to another. Over time, some families accumulated more food and possessions than others. Food surplus sometimes led to conflict, however, as some groups wanted to expand their supplies at the expense of others. Some people hired guards to protect their wealth. As surpluses increased and people began to specialize, greater social differences emerged. As evidence of this inequality, scientists have unearthed graves with jewelry and other fine materials, while other graves have none of these things. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Since we talked about farming again today, I thought another farming joke would be the way to go. This cow says, "My grandfather was a knight. His name was Sir Loin." Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.